Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. Today we are going to discuss, we're going to solve an example using loop. We want to see some more examples of how to use loop in different use cases. So in this use case that we want to use loop, we want to be able to check if our application will be able to receive a sequence of numbers from a user. So let's say a user has been asked to receive all the marks of students in a class. How are we going to use a loop to receive all of these numbers? Let us dive right in and see how this is done. So just as you can see, I have created a new project calling it loop example, and I'm going to remove this. And like we always do, let us start from the known to the unknown. So if I want to, for instance, receive marks of students in a class, how do I do that? First, I want to prompt the user. So I'll say cout please enter mark. And then remember the end L is just taking our cursor to the next line. So after I have prompted the user to enter the mark, I need to receive whichever mark is going to be entered by the user. But because this is the first time I'm using mark, I need to declare it. So I know that the marks of a student is most likely going to be an integer. So I'll use an integer mark, right? But then I want to be able to continue to prompt the user and receive the marks of the next student, and then the next student, and then the next student, until all the students marks have been received. How do I do that? So you will wrap these two instructions in a loop. I'll use the while loop. So I'll say while true. So means that this will continue to be true. So whilst true, I want you to repeat these two lines of instruction. You understand? And I'll continue to receive the marks and receive the marks and receive the marks until thy kingdom come. Let us run this and see what we get. So by running this, you see that it says please enter marks. So I'll enter 20 and hit enter. You say please enter marks. I'll enter 30. I'll enter 70. So this will continue to go on until a certain condition sets the while condition to false. So what condition can possibly set this while condition to false? Let us assume that we don't expect anybody to enter to score 0. So as soon as we enter 0, it means that that is the end of the marks. So we can put this condition in it so that as soon as our loop encounters the entry 0, our loop will recognize that this is the end of the marks that it is receiving, and then it will stop there. Let's see how this is done. So in this case, we are going to put in a condition, and we say if mark, whatever the user enters as mark, is the same as 0, then we want you to stop looping at all. How do we tell you to stop looping? By using the keyword break. So if you say that if the mark is equal to 0, then break, meaning that if the mark is equal to 0, then stop looping at all. I hope this is clear. So in this case, we would see that as soon as we encounter the number 0, the loop would stop. Let us run this and see what we get. So we are going to enter 40, 35, 80, and then now let's enter 0. So you see that as soon as we enter 0, the program has ended, right? But let's not just end here. Let's make this program more exciting. Let's see how we can sum up all the marks of the students, or all the students' marks that has been entered. How do we do that? It means that in this case we need to declare a variable. Let's call it sum, and then we'll say that whenever somebody enters a marks or a mark for a student, we are going to add that mark that has been entered to the container sum. So we'll say that sum is equal to what is already in sum plus what the user entered as the mark. But remember that we've never used sum before, so in that case we need to declare sum. So we declare sum and then instantiate it to 0, or initiate it to 0. So when we run this, it means that by the time we loop everything together, this should give us the sum of our individual marks that has been entered. But what if, for instance, we want to find who had the highest score in the class? Then we can declare a variable and call it highest score, right? And we say that highest score should be equal to what? Marks. But highest score should only be equal to marks if what is already in highest score is less than the mark. So we say that if highest score is less than mark, then we want the new mark to replace what is inside higher score. I hope it's clear. The same way, we can use the same analogy and say that if we are looking for the lowest score in the class, then we can say that lowest score, if it is less than, or if what is in max, in this case, if what is in max is greater than highest score, then we should put what's in max in. The same way, if what is in mark is less than what is already in lowest score, then we should put what is. But remember that we have not used highest score and then lowest score before, and so we can, let me just add them to the mark because we want to declare all of them as integers. So I have highest, lowest score, and then what? And then highest score. I hope it is clear up to this point. So you see that once we start receiving the mark, the sum will keep track of everything that has been added together, and then if the highest score, if the mark is bigger than the highest score, then we are going to do what? We are going to, so we can say that the highest score should be equal to what? Should be equal to 0. And then because lowest score, we want the lowest mark to be in lowest score, we can put a very high value in it. Let's say 999, when we know that no student will possibly get 999 because the marks of the student is between 0 and 100. And so once we run this, you would see that at the end of the day, we'll be able to get a sum. This is how to find the sum. This is how to find the highest score, and this is how to find the lowest score. And all right, since we have the highest score and the lowest score, let us just add something like, let's find the average and also see what we get. Remember that we already have the sum of all the numbers, and so if we want the average is simply the sum divided the total number of marks that has been entered. So how do we know the total number of marks that has been entered? Let us use a variable called, let's say, count, to keep track of it, so that anytime okay, let me use counter. Count is a keyword, so I'll use counter. So anytime there is a loop, anytime something is entered, we are going to increase what is in counter by 1. Again, remember that we've never used counter before, and so we are going to declare counter here as an integer. So I'll declare counter as part of the integers. And so if I want to find the average, all that I need to do is to say that average is equal to the sum divided by the counter. Right, but remember that average, when you are dividing two numbers, it is very likely that you would get a decimal number, and so average cannot be a double. Cannot be an integer. So we'll declare average as double. If we want to declare average as double, then we need to ensure that this is an integer, this is also an integer. So we need to ensure that we convert this to a double. How do we do that? So we can do that by casting this number into a double. By casting means that by forcing it to convert from an integer to a double. So how do we do that? We use this function, static cast double, and then we cast the sum into a double. And so once we run this, then we can also say that, okay, we'll display the average here and say that then the average is what we want to display. Right, so let's see. So after casting the sum to a double and dividing it by the counter, we are able to get the sum, display the total number of items that have been entered, the highest score, the lowest score, and then the average. And so this is how to manipulate numbers using a loop. I hope it is clear. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Again, do not forget to subscribe to this channel so that you will have more content like this and be able to follow throughout our programming journey. Again, do well to subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful day.